When was the last time you heard anyone talk about MV Agusta with the energy the brand used to create? Almost never. And that says everything. There was a time when this Italian motorcycle manufacturer commanded respect from every performance enthusiast on the planet. Their bikes graced MotoGP podiums, their engineering pushed boundaries, and owning one meant joining in an exclusive club of riders who demanded perfection. For decades, MV Agusta felt like a guarantee of excellence. But momentum only lasts if the business behind it does not implode repeatedly. Ownership changed hands 6 times in 20 years. Premium pricing without premium reliability destroyed credibility. Limited dealer networks made service a nightmare. The name stayed familiar among motorcycle enthusiasts, but the influence faded into niche irrelevance. So today's question is simple. How did MV Agusta rise to legendary status? And what pushed it into $400 million in ownership chaos that eliminated any chance of sustained success? To understand the collapse, you need to understand the empire that once stood tall in the motorcycle world. MV Agusta was not just another motorcycle manufacturer. It was a racing dynasty that dominated the track like no other brand in history. Between 1958 and 1974, MV Agusta secured an unprecedented 37 consecutive 500 cubic centimeter world championships, a record that still stands unchallenged today. This was not just winning, it was complete domination of the highest level of motorcycle racing for nearly 2 decades. Behind each championship-winning machine was an unwavering commitment to engineering excellence. Every MV Agusta motorcycle was hand-built in Varese, Italy, with a level of precision that made Swiss watchmakers jealous. Each component was meticulously crafted, and each assembly performed with obsessive attention to detail. These were not motorcycles that rolled off an assembly line. They were mechanical masterpieces born from the hands of skilled artisans. Owning an MV Agusta meant more than possessing a motorcycle. It meant joining in an exclusive club alongside legends like Giacomo Agostini, the most successful Grand Prix rider in history. When you straddled an MV, you were not just riding, you were participating in a legacy of excellence that stretched back decades. This exclusivity and pedigree allowed MV Agusta to position itself above even premium brands like Ducati. They were the Ferrari of motorcycles, commanding prices that reflected their racing heritage and uncompromising craftsmanship. Unlike mass-market manufacturers who built motorcycles for everyone, MV Agusta built motorcycles for those who demanded the very best, regardless of cost. The brand transcended mere transportation to become a cultural icon, featured in films, coveted by collectors, and representing the absolute pinnacle of Italian motorcycle engineering. An MV Agusta was not just purchased, it was acquired like a piece of functional art that happened to be capable of blistering speed and precision handling. What makes the MV Agusta story particularly fascinating is that Count Domenico Agusta, the visionary behind the brand, did not actually start with motorcycles at all. He inherited an aviation company in 1927, Meccanica Vergara Agusta, which specialized in aircraft production. But when World War II ended, new restrictions grounded his aircraft business, forcing a pivot that would change motorcycling forever. This post-war pivot strategy proved to be a stroke of genius. Count Agusta converted his company's aircraft manufacturing expertise directly into motorcycle production. The precision engineering skills that had previously gone into aircraft engines and components were now applied to two-wheeled machines, giving MV Agusta an immediate technical advantage over competitors who had started as bicycle manufacturers or general engineering firms. Unlike many motorcycle manufacturers who focused first on commercial success and then considered racing, Count Agusta employed a racing-first philosophy from the very beginning. The company entered Grand Prix racing immediately in 1948, using competition not just as a marketing tool, but as the primary driver of technological advancement. The motorcycles sold to the public were direct descendants of their racing machines, not watered-down approximations. The true breakthrough moment came in 1958 when MV Agusta hired the legendary British rider John Surtees. This partnership marked the beginning of the most dominant era in motorcycle racing history. Surtees would win 7 world championships with MV Agusta before later becoming the only man to win world championships on both 2 wheels and 4, after switching to Formula 1. While their competitors were still running singles and twins, MV Agusta was developing revolutionary multi-cylinder engines that produced power figures thought impossible for motorcycles of the era. Their inline-4 engines became the template that Japanese manufacturers would later adopt and refine for mass production. But MV was there first, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. This racing success created an irresistible cultural momentum. The victories on Sunday directly translated into street bike desirability on Monday, creating waiting lists for production models that stretch months or even years. Motorcycle enthusiasts worldwide did not just want an MV Agusta. They needed one, regardless of the premium price or the weight required to obtain it. The company's rise was not just about building better motorcycles. It was about creating an aura of uncompromising excellence and exclusivity that transcended the mechanical aspects of their products. When you purchased an MV Agusta, you were not just buying Italian engineering, you were buying into a philosophy that valued perfection above all else. By the 1960s, MV Agusta had achieved something no motorcycle manufacturer has matched it since. Complete racing domination combined with street bike exclusivity created an aura of mystique and desirability unlike anything in the industry. The racing statistics alone tell a story of unprecedented success. 37 consecutive 500 cubic centimeter championships, 270 Grand Prix victories, and 75 world titles across all classes. To put this in modern context, this would be like a single manufacturer winning every MotoGP championship from 1985 through 2022, without a single defeat. It was not just winning, it was absolute domination of a sport. Behind this racing success was a production excellence that set standards few could match. MV Agusta motorcycles were not merely assembled. They were crafted with tolerances measured in thousandths of inches, not millimeters. Each engine was bench tested before installation. Each component was checked and rechecked before a motorcycle was deemed worthy of bearing the MV Agusta name. These were not production motorcycles in the conventional sense. They were mechanical works of art. This combination of racing success and production excellence allowed MV Agusta to command a market position few brands could dream of. Their motorcycles carried premium pricing 40 to 60% above competitors. Yet that premium was justified by racing pedigree and limited production numbers. An MV Agusta was not expensive. It was valuable, with each component and engineering decision reflecting decades of racing triumph. Celebrity ownership further cemented the brand's status. Hollywood stars, European royalty, and racing legends all rode MV Agustas, not just as transportation, but as status symbols that communicated an understanding of engineering excellence and cultural sophistication. When celebrities were photographed on their MV Agustas, it was not product placement, it was genuine appreciation for mechanical masterpieces. During this peak period, the MV Agusta dealer network expanded to include exclusive dealerships in major cities worldwide, with waiting lists that extended for months for new models. These were not mere motorcycle shops, they were temples to Italian engineering, staffed by technicians who understood the unique requirements of these hand-built machines. What made this period truly remarkable was the seemingly unshakable position MV Agusta had established. They created a virtuous cycle where racing success drove technical innovation. Technical innovation improved the production motorcycles. Those sales funded more racing, and that racing generated more victories. It seemed like a perpetual motion machine of excellence that could continue indefinitely. The company had transformed itself from an aircraft manufacturer, forced to pivot after World War II, into the undisputed king of motorcycle racing, and the producer of the world's most desirable production motorcycles. At this peak, an MV Agusta was not just the best motorcycle you could buy. It represented the pinnacle of what was possible when engineering excellence met racing passion. By the mid-1970s, dark clouds were gathering over Varese, as MV Agusta faced a series of challenges that would define the next 5 decades of struggle, and ultimately undermine everything they had built. The first domino fell in 1976, when Count Agusta made the fateful decision to withdraw from Grand Prix racing due to escalating costs. This ended the competitive advantage that had justified the brand's premium pricing for decades. Without the constant flow of racing innovations and the marketing value of weekend victories, MV Agusta suddenly found itself selling heritage rather than cutting-edge performance. This racing withdrawal coincided with the rising tide of Japanese competition. Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki were not just offering cheaper alternatives, they were engineering reliable, increasingly sophisticated machines with performance that began to rival the Italian exotics. The Japanese manufacturers brought industrial efficiency and quality control that created motorcycles that not only performed well, but also did not leak oil in the showroom. MV Agusta's production limitations further exacerbated their competitive disadvantages. Their hand-building methods, once a source of pride and exclusivity, now prevented them from scaling to meet demand or reducing costs competitively. While Japanese manufacturers were pioneering advanced manufacturing techniques, MV Agusta was still essentially building motorcycles the same way they had in the 1950s. The first major ownership crisis had actually begun several years earlier, with Count Agusta's death in 1971, which left the company without clear leadership or succession planning. The vacuum created by his passing removed the singular vision that had guided the company through its golden years. Family disputes and management uncertainty replaced the clear direction that had previously driven the company forward. Perhaps most significantly, the motorcycle market itself was undergoing a fundamental shift. Buyers were increasingly prioritizing reliability and value over racing heritage and exclusivity. The motorcyclist of the 1970s wanted a machine that started every time, did not require constant maintenance, and delivered consistent performance. These were areas where Japanese manufacturers excelled, and where MV Agusta increasingly fell short. These combined factors created a perfect storm. MV Agusta's production motorcycle division ceased operations in 1977, just 1 year after withdrawing from racing. The fall was as swift as it was shocking. In less than 2 years, the dominant force in motorcycling had effectively disappeared from both the racetrack and the showroom. What made this collapse particularly tragic was that it did not have to happen. With proper succession planning, continued investment in manufacturing modernization, and a strategic approach to the changing market, MV Agusta could have evolved while maintaining its premium position. Instead, the company clung to tradition until tradition alone was not enough to sustain it, setting the stage for decades of failed revivals and dashed hopes. The solution seemed obvious: find new ownership with deeper pockets and modern manufacturing capabilities that could revive this dormant legend. After more than a decade in limbo, a new chapter began with the Cagiva acquisition in 1991. Cagiva, another Italian motorcycle company with a focus on off-road and small displacement motorcycles, bought the MV Agusta name and rights, promising to breathe new life into the legendary brand. This acquisition was not just a business transaction. It was positioned as a resurrection, a chance to restore a national treasure to its former glory. The new ownership immediately recognized that while MV Agusta's hand assembly traditions were romantically appealing, they were commercially unsustainable. The strategy shifted toward modern manufacturing techniques while maintaining the premium positioning that had always defined the brand. The plan was to combine old-world craftsmanship with new-world efficiency, the soul of MV Agusta with the production discipline of more successful manufacturers. The centerpiece of this revival strategy was the development of the F4 Superbike, a cutting-edge motorcycle launched in 1999 that combined classic MV Agusta styling cues with contemporary performance capabilities. Designed by Massimo Tamburini, the same genius behind Ducati's iconic 916, the F4 was breathtaking, a motorcycle that looked like it was doing 200 miles per hour standing still. To rebuild competitive credibility and marketing appeal, plans were made to return to racing in the World Superbike Championship. This would create the same virtuous cycle that had powered MV Agusta's original success: race on Sunday, sell on Monday, while developing technologies that could filter down to production models. Perhaps most ambitious was the planned dealer expansion, aimed at creating a global dealer network to support increased production and sales targets. No longer would MV Agusta be an unobtainable exotic, it would be a premium but accessible brand with proper sales and service support worldwide. On paper, the strategy was sound. Leverage the heritage and prestige of the MV Agusta name, combine it with modern manufacturing and business practices, create motorcycles that honored the past while embracing the future, and rebuild the infrastructure needed to support a global luxury brand. It was a template similar to what Ferrari had achieved in the automotive world, maintaining exclusivity while scaling to sustainable production levels. The F4's unveiling at the 1998 Milan Motorcycle Show created a sensation, Motorcycle journalists and enthusiasts alike hailed it as a masterpiece, a worthy successor to the legendary MV Agustas of the past, and perhaps the most beautiful motorcycle ever created. Orders flooded in, investors were optimistic, and for a brief, shining moment, it seemed as though MV Agusta was truly back, ready to reclaim its throne. The strategy was not just about selling motorcycles, it was about rebuilding an icon, restoring national pride, and proving that Italian craftsmanship could still compete in a world increasingly dominated by efficiency and mass production. It was ambitious, romantic, and inspiring, everything MV Agusta had always represented. The F4 launch in 1999 should have marked MV Agusta's triumphant return. Instead, it revealed fundamental problems that would plague every subsequent ownership group and dash the hopes of motorcycle enthusiasts worldwide. Almost immediately, quality control issues began to surface. The F4 was undeniably beautiful, perhaps the most visually stunning motorcycle ever mass-produced. But beauty alone could not compensate for reliability problems that directly contradicted premium pricing expectations. Early adopters found themselves with gorgeous paperweights that spent more time in workshops than on roads. Electrical issues, oil leaks, and component failures became commonplace complaints. The promised dealer network expansion never materialized in any meaningful way, leaving customers without local service and parts support. Owners often had to transport their motorcycles hundreds of miles for simple service procedures, creating frustration and resentment that spread through word of mouth and, as the internet age dawned, online forums. A premium purchase experience quickly devolved into a premium headache. Ownership instability further undermined execution when Cagiva sold to Malaysian car manufacturer Proton in 2004, beginning a pattern of frequent ownership changes that would define the next 2 decades. Each new owner arrived with grand plans and optimistic projections, only to discover the depth of the challenges and eventually look for an exit strategy. Production inconsistencies became a hallmark of the revived brand. Limited manufacturing capacity created supply shortages, while quality remained unpredictable. Dealers could not reliably tell customers when their motorcycles would arrive, and when they did arrive, the build quality could vary dramatically from one unit to the next. The very exclusivity that should have been a selling point became a liability. Motorcycles were rare not by design, but by manufacturing limitation. Customer frustration reached a boiling point as online forums filled with complaints about breakdowns, warranty issues, and unavailable parts. What should have been proud owners becoming brand ambassadors instead became vocal critics warning others away. The premium price commanded by MV Agusta motorcycles created expectations of premium reliability and service that the company consistently failed to deliver. What made the execution failure particularly tragic was that the product itself, when working properly, was exceptional. The F4 and subsequent models like the Brutale delivered exhilarating performance, distinctive character, and unmatched visual appeal. Riding a properly sorted MV Agusta was a transcendent experience that reminded enthusiasts why the brand had been legendary. But that was the fundamental problem. When working properly became a qualifier that potential customers could not ignore. MV Agusta had created motorcycles that excelled in every subjective category: sound, feel, appearance, emotional connection, while failing in the objective categories of reliability, service support, and ownership experience. In an era when Japanese and German competitors had raised the bar on quality expectations, MV Agusta was selling a premium experience with discount reliability. Over the next 2 decades, the pattern became depressingly predictable. New owners arrived with big promises and bold visions, only to encounter the same fundamental problems that had plagued every previous attempt at revival. The ownership carousel became almost comical in its frequency. 6 different ownership groups took control between 2004 and 2024, each promising stability while delivering chaos. From Malaysian car manufacturer Proton, to Harley-Davidson, to various Italian investment groups, and most recently to KTM parent company Purer Mobility, each transition brought fresh optimism, quickly followed by familiar disappointment. The financial losses were staggering, with accumulated losses exceeding $400 million across multiple ownership transitions and restructuring attempts. Harley-Davidson's brief ownership proved particularly costly. They purchased MV Agusta for $109 million in 2008 and sold it back to the Castiglione family for just €3 in 2010. essentially paying to get the troubled brand off their books during the global financial crisis. Market share declined precipitously, with annual sales dropping from a peak of approximately 9,000 units to fewer than 3,000 by 2020. For context, Ducati, MV Agusta's natural competitor, was selling over 50,000 motorcycles annually during the same period. What had once been the dominant force in motorcycling had become a niche player, struggling for relevance. The dealer network collapse was particularly devastating. In the United States, dealer count fell from 180 locations in 2008 to fewer than 50 by 2024. Without local sales and service support, even enthusiasts willing to overlook reliability issues had no practical way to purchase or maintain MV Agusta motorcycles in many regions. Perhaps most damaging was the brand reputation damage that accumulated over years of disappointment. Premium pricing without premium reliability destroyed credibility with performance motorcycle enthusiasts who might otherwise have been the brand's natural ambassadors. Online forums and motorcycle media became filled with warnings rather than recommendations, creating a negative feedback loop that proved nearly impossible to break. The few loyal customers who remained often described a strange dichotomy. They loved their MV Agustas despite the ownership experience, not because of it. They spoke of their motorcycles as beautiful, temperamental, exotic pets rather than reliable transportation. Character became a euphemism for problems, and owners joked about keeping Italian mechanics on speed dial. What made these consequences particularly poignant was the contrast with other revived Italian brands that managed to succeed where MV Agusta had failed. Ducati, under Audi ownership, maintained its distinctive character while dramatically improving reliability and dealer support. Moto Guzzi found stability under Piaggio Group ownership. Even Benelli found a path forward through Chinese investment. Only MV Agusta seemed trapped in a perpetual cycle of revival and disappointment. By 2020, the once mighty MV Agusta had been reduced to a cautionary tale in business schools and a punchline among motorcycle enthusiasts. The brand that had once defined excellence had instead become defined by failure, not of products, but of execution. Beautiful motorcycles undermined by business incompetence. What exactly went wrong? How did a brand with such heritage, such passion, and such beautiful products repeatedly fail to translate these assets into sustainable business success? It came down to three critical mistakes that repeated under every ownership group, creating a template for failure that proved remarkably consistent across decades. Mistake number one was corporate chaos. The constant ownership changes prevented long-term strategy development, product planning, and dealer relationship building. Each new ownership group would arrive with a different vision, different priorities, and different expectations, creating organizational whiplash that made consistent execution impossible. Employees, suppliers, and dealers could not commit to long-term relationships with a company whose future direction might completely change with the next sale. Mistake number two was demanding premium pricing without delivering premium reliability. MV Agusta consistently charged Ducati prices while delivering Honda Civic-level dependability. This fundamental disconnect created an ownership experience where the joy of acquisition was quickly replaced by the frustration of malfunction. In the modern motorcycle market, exclusivity and character cannot completely overcome fundamental reliability issues, especially at premium price points. Mistake number three was dealer network neglect. The limited service availability made ownership a nightmare, destroying customer loyalty and word-of-mouth marketing that should have been the brand's greatest asset. Even enthusiasts willing to accept some reliability compromises could not overcome the practical challenges of servicing a motorcycle hundreds of miles from the nearest dealer. The most beautiful motorcycle in the world becomes worthless when it cannot be repaired. The contrast with successful competitors is revealing. Ducati maintained consistent ownership under Audi, invested heavily in dealer networks, and dramatically improved reliability while preserving the character that made their motorcycles distinctive. They understood that modern luxury consumers demand both emotional connection and functional reliability, not one at the expense of the other. The market reality that MV Agusta repeatedly failed to recognize is that performance motorcycle buyers have evolved. They still demand emotional appeal, distinctive character, and exclusive design, but they also expect their premium-priced motorcycles to start reliably, not leak oil, and to be serviceable without extraordinary effort. The days when wealthy enthusiasts would accept significant functional compromises for Italian craftsmanship ended decades ago. What makes this analysis particularly frustrating is that MV Agusta consistently got the hard part right. They created motorcycles of extraordinary beauty, distinctive character, and compelling performance. Where they failed was in the seemingly mundane but ultimately critical aspects of business execution, quality control, dealer development, supply chain management, and customer service. The failure was not glamour, but quality and discipline. The tragedy of MV Agusta is not that they could not design great motorcycles. It is that they could not build a great business around those motorcycles. Each ownership group seemed to believe that the product alone would be enough, that the magic of the MV Agusta name and the beauty of their designs would overcome fundamental business deficiencies. It was romanticism triumphing over pragmatism, with predictably disappointing results. Today, MV Agusta exists in a state of beautiful irrelevance, still making gorgeous motorcycles that few people buy and even fewer people recommend. It is a shadow of what was once motorcycling's greatest name. In 2024, the company produced under 3,000 units annually, a fraction of what competitors like Ducati or Triumph manufacture. The dealer network remains limited, and the company continues to undergo financial restructuring under its latest owner, Pure Mobility, parent of KTM. The cycle of promise and disappointment continues with familiar patterns. MV Agusta now occupies a niche market position, relegated to collectors and enthusiasts willing to accept reliability issues in exchange for exclusivity and styling. These are not motorcycles purchased for practical transportation or even regular weekend rides. They have become exotic acquisitions, conversation pieces that spend more time being admired than being ridden. The future remains uncertain, as the latest ownership group promises familiar solutions, better quality, expanded dealers, and long-term stability that echo the unfulfilled promises of previous regimes. The difference this time might be the industrial expertise of Pure Mobility, which has successfully managed multiple motorcycle brands including KTM, Husqvarna, and GasGas. Skepticism remains the default response among industry observers who have seen this movie before. The universal business lesson from MV Agusta's saga is both simple and profound. Engineering excellence means nothing without operational competence and customer service infrastructure. You can create the most beautiful, best-performing product in your category, but if you cannot deliver it reliably, support it properly, and stand behind it consistently, you are building a house on sand. This brings us to the final question that haunts both the company and motorcycle enthusiasts worldwide. In a world where Ducati proves you can be both exclusive and reliable, does MV Agusta still have a comeback in it? Or is this what happens when corporate chaos destroys customer trust? Can the magic of the MV name ever overcome decades of disappointment? Or has the damage to the brand been too severe? The story of MV Agusta serves as a cautionary tale for any business that believes exceptional product alone can overcome operational deficiencies. It reminds us that heritage and history are assets only when paired with execution and consistency. A legendary past becomes a burden rather than an advantage when it creates expectations that the present cannot fulfill. For the current owners of MV Agusta, the challenge is not just reviving a motorcycle company. It is rebuilding trust with a market that has been disappointed repeatedly. That may prove to be the hardest race MV Agusta has ever entered, and one where past championships count for very little in determining future success. Engineering excellence built MV Agusta's empire. Business incompetence destroyed it. The machines remain beautiful, but beauty alone was never enough to sustain a business. That is a lesson MV Agusta learned too late, and one that other premium brands would do well to remember. In the shifting luxury landscape, MV Agusta reminds us that premium prices demand premium experiences at every touchpoint. While heritage once justified compromises, today's consumers will not accept beautiful disappointments. Luxury brands must deliver substance alongside style, or they will fade into irrelevance. Before your next luxury purchase, question what you are really paying for. Do you agree that reliability trumps exclusivity? Subscribe. The luxury world is changing faster than you realize.